Zelda is one of Nintendo's most iconic female figures. But even the most well-known characters have a few dark secrets of their own. Her family and background is shrouded in a cloud of mystery we can't wait to unravel. So follow along with us as we uncover Princess Zelda's secrets. Hey, listen, we're so glad you've decided to join us on this adventure. Take our advice and subscribe to our channel because it's dangerous to go alone. Click that bell to be part of our notification squad and have a Navi of your own. Without further ado, here are 8 dark secrets you never knew about Princess Zelda. She's a master of disguise. Probably one of the biggest debates centering around Zelda is whether her disguise as Sheik is female or male. In all honesty, it could go either way since we know Zelda has the magic to transform herself, so it isn't too much of a stretch to consider she has used magic to change into a completely different person. On the other hand, she could have just been wearing male clothing the whole time and posing as a guy. Either way, her ability to disguise herself is pretty invaluable in most of the Zelda franchise. The main reason Zelda has to disguise herself throughout the series is for her own well-being. Both her disguises have been pretty influential. As Sheik in Ocarina of Time, she was basically a ninja who teaches you songs in order to advance, and she, or he, depending on what you think Zelda has become, helps Link and is an important asset along the way. Then one of our favorite disguises is Tetra in Wind Waker. We can't help but love and adore Tetra even though she can be a bit bossy and headstrong. Tetra also proves Zelda is such a master of disguise that she's even fooled herself into thinking she was someone else. If you could see Zelda disguised as someone else, who or what would you like to see her disguised as in the next game? She's incredibly powerful. We've all seen the chaos and destruction Ganondorf is able to unleash upon the world in the Zelda games, but what we've yet to see is the ability any of Zelda's incarnations have. And yet Princess Zelda, for the most part, becomes an essential staple in defeating the final boss in many of the games. It leads us to the question of why she's always hiding if she has these amazing abilities. Many of Zelda's incarnations were introduced as a very strong and gifted figure. She usually has innate psychic or magical powers like telepathy or precognition, and we've also seen her have the ability to cast spells, remove barriers, and seals. And she's pretty amazing with a bow as a weapon. We also can't forget when, disguised as Tetra, she's able to wield the Master Sword, even if it's just briefly in the game. She's one of the few characters besides Link shown to be able to wield the Blade of Evil's Bane. It only allows for someone untouched by evil with a pure heart to use it, which makes us question why she even needs Link to rescue her all of the time. We didn't get to see how well she could use the sword, and we're sure she probably wouldn't be able to wield it as efficiently as any of the Links could. It does put her on another level though. Navi was supposed to hate Zelda. There was once an interview with Miyamoto, which briefly discussed the origin of Link and what the inspiration was for the character. Miyamoto explained how the designers wanted to create a character who is recognizable, and as a result, sprite designer Takashi Tezuka looked for Disney as inspiration while putting together the design for Link. We could only think of one character Link resembles, and that's Peter Pan. The green garments, pointy hat, and elf-like ears are a dead giveaway, but there's also the fact he has a heart of pure gold and a fairy as a best friend. Anyone else think Navi is like the less annoying version of Tinkerbell? Speaking of Navi, there was some backstory to her character which never made it into the game, but is still intriguing. Navi was supposed to have developed a crush on Link as their story progressed. She's also going from a form of hatred towards every Zelda incarnation, not because Princess Zelda was an evil character, but because she wanted Link all to herself. It would have been a cool little addition to the story, but the games are so complicated and adding girl problems to Link's already substantial list of issues didn't seem like a good fit. So Miyamoto tossed aside the idea. Although we would have loved to see the comical twist of Navi hating Zelda for all the wrong reasons, we're kinda glad because she may have just become as annoying as Tinkerbell was in Peter Pan. Zelda is many different royal female characters. Fans of Zelda want to pull their hair out when they try to go into exactly who Zelda is, and it becomes even worse when trying to explain to people who've never played the Zelda series that Link is not Zelda. Now let's get down to business, shall we? Zelda is never the same character, but it's the name given to several of the female Hylians, usually members of the royal family of Hyrule, and they always play an important part in the series even though Link is the main protagonist. The royal family is the governing monarch family of Hyrule and consists of a reigning male sovereign, a princess, typically named Zelda, and on occasion a prince. No queen has been introduced in the games, although we do get a brief mention of Zelda's mother in The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Hyrule has some pretty dark secrets of its own, including the fact that it broke out into a Hyrulean civil war as tribes warred over the all-powerful Triforce. But, finally, the King of Hyrule united all the tribes under the banner of the Hylian royal family. Is this a video on Zelda or Game of Thrones? One of the biggest mysteries of the game is Zelda's mother's death, as it has been claimed it was either accidental or an illness since it came on suddenly. Zelda's mother's death was detrimental to Ganon's return. We already know the Queen of Hyrule is a mysterious entity throughout the game, since we only see any mention of her in her daughter and husband's diaries found in Hyrule Castle. She also isn't given a name, but we know she is deceased by the time the game's events take place. She lived at least 6 years before the birth of her daughter, since it's stated Zelda was only 6 at the time and just beginning her training. We see hints throughout the diary entries that the Queen cared deeply for Zelda and knew she would become a strong figure with unlimited potential. Oh, what a good mom. Although not explicitly stated in the game, the Queen's death played a significant part in her husband and daughter's life and the downfall of Hyrule. Zelda was saddened by the sudden loss of her mother, but refused to cry about it. Her father believed this was because she was told her duty was to be a valiant and steady princess. However, we later see her internal struggle and how deeply affected she is by her mother's death, especially when Zelda can't awaken her powers and she becomes hopeless and distraught, believing her mother was incorrect in her claim she had unlimited power and potential. Princess Zelda turns to the study of ancient technology, refusing to listen to her father about training harder. But knowing the great calamity and the imminent threat of Ganon's return is upon them. Her father is killed and Hyrule is thrown into utter chaos. Since Zelda struggled to awaken her powers partially because of her mother's death, it contributed to the fall of Hyrule and becomes an integral part of the Zelda series. The Prince of Hyrule continues Zelda's legacy. We've pretty much established the royal family is shrouded in mystery because we see many versions of it. But if we go back to Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, it gives a bit more insight into the mystery. The King of Hyrule at one time possessed the United Triforce, but decided to secretly seal one of the pieces away, the Triforce of Courage. So when the Prince of Hyrule would ascend to the throne, there would be a missing piece. This leads us to a few questions. Did the King of Hyrule not trust the prince with the United Triforce? Or did he know there would be bad figures working at the Great Palace who would use the power of the Triforce for evil? Either way, we discover Princess Zelda was entrusted by her dying father with a secret she couldn't divulge. She knew where the location of the Triforce of Courage was, but after refusing to tell her brother their father's secret, the magician threatens to curse her and put her into an enchanted sleep. This dark magic causes the magician's own death. The Triforce of Courage was kept secret until a new hero could find it and begin the path to bring the kingdom back to peace. One theory states the magician may have been one of the alter egos of Ganon, similar to a Gagnum in A Link to the Past, or he was under Ganon's command since he knew the secrets of the Triforce. Zelda's brother was devastated by his comatose sister locked away in the castle, and decreed to honor her by naming all daughters born to the royal family as Zelda, so their history and tragedy would not be forgotten. Of course, it's Link who saves the sleeping Princess Zelda, and it's her brother who continued her legacy throughout the series. Possessed Zelda is the scariest figure in the game. One of the darkest moments of the Legend of Zelda series is when we're introduced to Ganon's puppet, Zelda, otherwise known as the Possessed Zelda. She becomes one of the bosses in The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess, which Link must defeat, and there's nothing more terrifying than hearing her speak in Ganon's voice. So how does a powerful figure like Zelda become possessed by Ganon? Well, it happens after Link and Midna return to Hyrule Castle after restoring the souls to their rightful place and finally defeating Zant. Link and Midna discover Zelda's lifeless body suspended in midair, with Ganondorf seated in the throne. Ganondorf taunts Link and Midna, and then transforms into the Twilight Particles. Midna attempts to revive the lifeless Zelda, but sees the Twilight Particles enter her body as she becomes possessed by Ganondorf. Her eyes turn into a luminous yellow, her skin becomes paler, and she develops Twilight symbols on her body as her hair darkens. The possessed Zelda summons her sword and creates a barrier separating Link and Midna, so they're unable to help each other. We basically see Zelda as her most dark and powerful self. She isn't an easy defeat, but if Link can manage to deflect the energy balls back at her, Ganon will lose control of her body and Midna is able to revive Zelda, who will help Link defeat Ganon in the end. This is one of those rare moments where we get to see the true power within Zelda, which is unleashed in its darkest form, but it's another reason why Twilight Princess is such a great title in the series. Zelda gets stereotyped as a damsel in distress by Nintendo. The most frustrating part of Zelda is that we already know how useful she is to Link by playing previous titles, where her role in helping him becomes essential in defeating Ganon. What becomes so bothersome, though, is her lack of screen time in most of the games. We already know she's powerful enough to wield a part of the Triforce, and she could easily finish and solve most of the puzzles of the game and defeat the bosses. Yet, we need Link to save her and be the true hero. Nintendo most likely underutilized Zelda's powers because there would be an outcry by fans who enjoy Link being the hero. After all, he has no backstory and barely speaks, because he's an easy way for players to step into the role of the hero, and if Link is always changing, Nintendo found it pointless to give him much of a backstory. The worst part with Zelda is her best character representations are in disguised characters like Tetra and Sheik, where she appears to be powerless, and Link doesn't even know it's Zelda who's helping him. It's a way for Nintendo to balance both Zelda and Link's powers. But if you're going to make Zelda a descendant of a goddess, then why give her such limitations? It's almost too early for Ganon to capture her, which is just another point in the game which becomes bothersome, and, as the Zelda series continues, there's an outcry for a title game which will either allow players to play as Zelda or an additional female representation of Link. Nintendo producer Eiji Aonuma released an official response to the female hero questions with these statements. If we made Link a female, we thought it would either mess with the balance of the Triforce. That's why we decided not to do it. And if we have a Princess Zelda as the main character who fights, then what is Link gonna do? This obviously didn't answer the question of why fans aren't given an opportunity to play as Zelda or a female hero, but at least Nintendo gave us the ability to play as some of our favorite female characters from the Zelda series in Hyrule Warriors. We do have to admit it's sort of a strange dark secret from Nintendo not to allow Zelda more screen time and opportunities to battle alongside Link. It is 2018 after all. It would be an interesting change to the series. We hope you enjoyed checking out some of Princess Zelda's secrets with us. What are some others we may have missed? Do you feel Zelda should star in her own game? Let us know in the comment section below. As always, remember, it's dangerous to go alone. Take this, and don't forget to join us next time. Thanks for watching.